from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Wednesday night, hump day, everybody. Join us, we're live and national. If you want to join the conversation, 833-482-5337, 8334-Valdez. I'll be taking calls in about a half hour, maybe 35 minutes. Got to get through a few things first, but you're welcome to join the conversation. And a few things we're going to talk about, right? In a little bit, we're going to chat about why que mala eres, Kamala Harris, how bad you are, is hiding from the media. Why is she hiding? Then we're going to talk about these fake ads that the campaign has been running, right? They've been rewording headlines. The Harris campaign has been rewording headlines on Google, paying for them as ads. And this blew up on the news today. And it's very interesting because, rather than say, hey, look, these are our policy positions, this is why we're running, they're just rewording ads that seem favorable and making them seem favorable based on how they're being reworded. It's really crazy. It's in effect, they're buying fake news. And you would think that the campaign would be above that and that Google would be above that. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to talk about the hacking of the big phone interview, actually Twitter Spaces interview, between Elon Musk and El Trumpito. And plus, there was some hacking on the Trump campaign as well. But I want to remind everybody, or ask a few questions of everyone that's listening. What are the issues in this election? I would say it's inflation, right? Inflation is directly connected to que mala eres, Kamala Harris. No question. Right? Inflation is her issue. The border is her issue. Whether you want to call her the czar or not, that's fine. You don't have to call her the czar. You can call her the president's lead person on the border, because that she was. That he did say. Right? And we've played the audio of that here. If we find it, I'll play it again. But that's a fact. That's not debatable. You can debate, well, he never called her a czar. Okay, he never called her a czar. He called her the lead person. He said, when she speaks for me. That's what he said. Thankfully, he didn't say, and you're not black, Kamala. Thankfully, he didn't say that. Now, what's interesting, and we have that one. Listen to this real fast.
Now, Vice President Kamala Harris is stepping into a new role, taking the lead on the immigration crisis for the White House.
And with pressure growing on the Biden administration, the president tapping Vice President Kamala Harris to take the lead.
I think the best thing to do is to put someone who, when he or she speaks, they don't have to wonder about, is that what the president is? When she speaks for me.
President Joe Biden on Wednesday put Vice President Kamala Harris in charge of efforts to stem the flow of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border that has led to a surge in unaccompanied children and an overcrowding of processing facilities.
But the vice president's agreed
to be the point person on immigration.
Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job.
There's no question that this is a challenging situation.
The situation centers around the biggest surge in migrants to cross the U.S.-Mexico border in 20 years.
Taking on the border crisis today, putting Vice President Kamala Harris in charge.
Federal facilities being overwhelmed by the number of unaccompanied minors arriving each and every day.
So, yes, you remember that, right? So the border is her issue. Whether you want to call her czar or not, that's fine. We have to remember that not a single Democrat primary voter voted for her. Not a single one. That's amazing. Now, I understand that's their quote-unquote parliamentary procedure. No problem. But it's also been 24 days since she launched this campaign with Tiananmen Tim, who there's a whole big story on him in Breitbart about how many ties he has to the Communist Chinese. Very eye-opening. Not only did he teach there, he honeymooned there. He's been there more than 24 times. Tiananmen Tim. So 24 days, they haven't sat down with a single member of the media to be asked questions. You know, I once ran for the state assembly, I don't know, almost 20 years ago. And I sat down for so many interviews. I was always on TV. Really. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Just one lowly district in New Jersey, and I was constantly getting interviewed. Newspapers, television, you know, local television, local cable. But they were interested in speaking with the candidate, invited to candidate forums. People would stop me in the street. People had an interest. People still have an interest. Now, some want to heckle her, but the majority of people would like to know where she's at. I think the majority of Americans want to say, excuse me, miss, why should I vote for you if you've been in office for almost 4 years and you've created the problem at the border? You've created this problem with inflation. You've created this problem where there's so many people coming into the country that are unvetted that they're criminals. These countries are letting out criminals and the mentally ill, and they're coming here and crime is being committed. Not the least of these crimes are the ones we just talked about yesterday with Curtis Sliwa. This woman, 46 years old, raped under the boardwalk in Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York. Her boyfriend tried to intervene. He was beaten. There was a 2-on-1 on the guy and a 2-on-1 on her, and she was held at knife point. Laken Riley, college student, raped going for a jog. Was killed before she could be raped. Because I'm presuming she fought him. What was her name? Ruby Diaz? I don't want to mess up her name. Another young lady killed. Little girls being killed. And the last one I remember was the girl in Long Island. And the one before that in one of the Midwestern states, or maybe it was Georgia, who her dad actually saw her get abducted. And they actually got her back before they could rape her. And some of my critics on this program, and I take them, I don't dodge them. They call here and they say that I'm being prejudicial in selecting these rape victims from others. And I am prejudiced against the idea of someone breaking into this country or being allowed to come into this country illegally by this administration, Kamala Harris and Joel Barbosa Biden, and raping little girls. I am very biased against that. And I say shame on anybody who's going to defend that and say that I shouldn't be picking on them. I think we should all be picking on them. Nobody should allow that. We have a massive problem with the cost of goods. They can say inflation's going down every month, and it very well may be. But you tell me, anybody listening to the show, if things are going down when you go to the store, if gas is getting more affordable. Every now and again, I go, oh, look, gas went down. Before I could finish the sentence, it goes back up. People know what's good for them. Kamala Harris isn't good for them. We're going to get into why she's hiding from the media. Why is she resisting scrutiny from America's watchdog in the First Amendment, right? The press, which is friendly to her to begin with. Why is she hiding? Well, more on that when we return. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Would it kill you guys to have a press conference? Why hasn't she had a press conference?
Listen, the Vice President and Governor Walz have been busy crisscrossing this country since the launch of this campaign.
But, Michael, you know a campaign rally is not a press conference.
It's going to be inclusive.
Do you mind if I cut in? I mean, you know, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Why hasn't she had a press conference? She's the vice president. She can handle the questions. Why not do it?
We absolutely are going to do it. You hear her take questions as she's out on the stump, and she said last week we're going to be having a sit-down interview here before the end of the month.
I don't want to belabor this, but one interview before the end of the month. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, can you commit to a press conference before the end of the month?
We will commit to directly engage with the voters that are actually going to decide this election. And that is going to be complete with rallies, with sit-down interviews, with press conferences, with all the digital assets that we have at our disposal.
That's Michael Tyler. He is the communications director for the Que Malaeres and Walls campaign. He was on CNN today with Jim Acosta, and he just laughed when he says, when he was asked why she's not holding any press conferences, and said, we're just going to go straight to the people. Like, screw you in the media, which I think many of us would like to say. He says it with a smile on his face, and the best that we could get is Jim Acosta asking one follow-up question. I want to get to the bottom of why she's hiding from the media from one of her former colleagues, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Welcome back, sir.
Rich, good evening. Great to be with you.
So what's going on here? I mean, to me, it's the obvious that she can't withstand the scrutiny, so she's just doing the Biden basement strategy. What say you?
Look, that is exactly right. She is following the Biden basement approach. They are hiding her. I think they've got her tied up in the same basement next to Joe Biden. Since she's been the presumptive nominee, she's done 0 press conferences. She's done 0 sit-down interviews. She doesn't take questions. She doesn't answer questions. And the reason is twofold. Number one, her record is terrible. Her record is indefensible. Kamala Harris is the most radical major party nominee to be nominated for president in the history of our country. She doesn't want to defend that. And number two, she's terrible at defending that. And so the campaign's approach, it's incredibly cynical, which is she is going to read from a teleprompter, which is she is doing word for word, day after day, reading from a teleprompter, and other than that, not say a word. And I got to say, it's an amazing thing. Not only is Kamala doing this, but my opponent in Texas, so I'm running against a guy named Colin Allred. He's an extremely left-wing Democrat, and he is following exactly the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris basement strategy. Today, it has been 50 days since Congressman Allred has done a press conference. He doesn't do events. He doesn't do press questions. And both of them are doing it for the same reasons, which is they are counting on the corrupt corporate media to spread their message for them, to push their message. And the corporate media is literally a part of their campaign. And so they don't want to make any mistakes. They don't want to defend their record. They want to hide and count on the media because they think that will deliver them the victory in November.
Senator Cruz, I agree with you. I think you're right. And this is the strategy they use, and they want to hide, and they don't want to, stand up to the scrutiny of we the people, or even the media, even the friendly media. But is this something from your position, from where I am, I'm not sure, but from your position, will we the people stand for this? Will Texans actually allow that to happen?
Well, look, I hope the answer is no, but I will say Democrats have been doing it more and more. We saw Joe Biden do it in 2020. He didn't leave his basement, and yet he's been president for 4 years. We saw also Katie Hobbs, the governor in Arizona. She didn't do a debate. She hid in her basement, and she got elected governor of Arizona. We saw Josh Shapiro, the governor in Pennsylvania. He didn't do a debate. He refused to do a debate. He hid in his basement, and he got elected. And the problem is, I think the Democrats, there's an irony. Sigmund Freud talked about the psychological phenomenon of projection, that something you're dealing with, you accuse others of having. Democrats today love to beat their chest and say they love democracy. I got to say, this approach, I think, is profoundly contemptuous of democracy. You see Donald Trump, he's doing press interviews all the time. He's doing press conferences all the time. He answers hard questions. This weekend, J.D. Vance did not 1, not 2, but 3 Sunday shows. Where was Kamala Harris? She did 0. Where was Tim Walz? He wasn't out.
Right. Both not available.
I think the voters are morons, and they don't have to answer a question because the media is corrupted in their pocket.
Unreal. So how tight is this? Is it tight at all? How do you feel about the race against your opponent in Texas?
Look, my race in Texas is a very, very serious race. My last re-election in 2018 was, at the time, it was the most expensive Senate race in U.S. history. And I was outspent 3-1. The Democrats flooded cash into Texas, and I won by less than 3 points. The margin was 2.6%. This time around, Chuck Schumer has been explicit. I am his #1 target in the country. and Chuck Schumer and George Soros are going to spend between $100 million and $150 million trying to beat me. They are flooding cash into the state of Texas. And I'll tell you, Rich, what is defending us is we are seeing thousands and thousands of people in Texas and all across the country who are going to our website. It's tedcruz.org, tedcruz.org. They're going to the website, tedcruz.org, and they're signing up, they're volunteering, but they're contributing. They're giving $10 or $25 or $50 or $100, or even some are giving $500 or $1,000 or even more. And the way we stand up to the millions that are coming from Chuck Schumer and George Soros is patriots across the country who are going to tedcruz.org saying we want strong, principled conservatives who will defend freedom, who will defend the Constitution, and who will speak the truth against the mountain of lies from the corrupt corporate media.
Folks, we're on with United States Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas. And, Senator, there's a couple more things I want to ask you, but principally, do you feel that Kamala Harris can effectively, like in good faith, walk away from the border as if she wasn't the border czar, as if she's not vice president, and run as some sort of outsider when she's literally in the Biden-Harris administration?
Yeah. So she's trying desperately to do that. Kamala Harris was the border czar. She's been the border czar for 4 years. She's been in charge of the southern border. Understand what's happened at the southern border. It's not an accident. It was not unintended. It is the outcome she wants. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden both want this invasion at the southern border. The 11.5 million illegal immigrants that have come into this country, the highest in history, is because Kamala Harris wants that. Why does she want that? Because she views those 11.5 million illegal immigrants as future Democrat voters, and she's cynically willing to turn away and ignore the people who are dying, ignore the Americans who are murdered by illegal immigrants that she and Joe Biden are releasing, ignore the women raped, the children brutalized. You'll recall in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention, my speech, what I talked about is every damn day another American is murdered, another woman is raped, another child is brutalized by illegal immigrants that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have released. And I got to say, my opponent, Colin Allred, has been a full-throated defender of Kamala Harris's open borders. He's voted over and over and over again in support of open borders. And yet, both Kamala Harris and Colin Allred are counting on the corrupt corporate media to erase all of that history and to claim that suddenly now they want to secure the border despite the fact that they were in charge of allowing this invasion.
Unreal. Folks, we're on with Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Make sure you check out his website and support the cause, tedcruz.org. And we're coming back. I want to talk about the effect that illegal immigration is having on Hispanics and the fight over the Latino vote when we come back. Again, we're coming right back with Ted Cruz. Make sure you check out the website, tedcruz.org. And if you are missing any portion of this, make sure you go to richvaldez.com where you could stream it and check out any of our interviews. I was going to say tedcruz.org, another free plug. richvaldez.com, richvaldez.com. Don't move a muscle. We're coming right back. The phone number 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Democrats are wheeling Granny off the cliff to give benefits to illegal aliens. They're giving the benefits to the illegals. And you know, a stat that came out the other day is that almost all of the new jobs in this country are going to illegals. They're not going to our people. They're going to illegals. And that's why The black population, Hispanic population, is voting for me at levels that nobody's ever seen before in this country. Because they're not getting the jobs. In fact, they're losing their jobs. As president, I will fight for American seniors like nobody has ever fought before, and we will not be fighting for the Biden illegals, as I call them. I will fight for American workers, not for human traffickers. I will fight for the American dreamers, not the child smugglers and woman smugglers. And I will restore the sovereign borders of the United States of America. So help me God.
That is El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of the United States, just about 6 or 7 weeks ago at a rally. And I think he hits the nail on the head. And I want to get some reaction to that and what's going on with the battle over the Latino vote with United States Senator Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz, welcome back. What are your thoughts on how the Hispanic community is feeling about the brunt of Kamala Harris's disastrous policies?
Listen, I think we're seeing the Hispanic community move Republican in dramatic ways, and I think this is an historic opportunity. You know, in my race in Texas, we announced a $4.5 million campaign focused on Latino voters and making the case. Look, if you look at the Hispanic community is paying the price for Kamala Harris's disastrous policy record. Whether it's out-of-control inflation that is hammering Hispanic families, that is making it harder to make ends meet, or whether it is crime that is skyrocketing in Hispanic communities, or whether it is the tragedy of open borders, where the Hispanic community is seeing 11.5 million illegals coming into this country and undermining their safety. I think we have an opportunity generationally to shift Hispanics, Republicans. I'm fully committed to that, and I think Donald Trump is too.
Folks, we're on with United States Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas. And I agree. I'm seeing enthusiasm all over the place between Hispanics, Latinos, with African Americans as well, where they're taking exception to some of what they're seeing lately with Kamala Harris trying to present herself as the only option for any type of minority voter. And a lot of people, at least on social media, are kind of pushing back and sounding off, saying, look, no, I'm not going to do it just because you said I have to do it, or because you bring a rapper, or because you do X, Y, and Z. I'm not with it, which is why we've nicknamed her Que Mala Eres, which means how bad she is. And she lives up to it every single day, doesn't she, Senator?
She really does. And it is striking. Let's take, for example, South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Kamala Harris spent 4 years as the border czar. She went to the Rio Grande Valley a total of 0 times, not a single time. And there's a reason, because if you go down there and you see the misery and suffering from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's open borders, if you see the dead bodies of migrants who day after day after day are dying on Texas farms and ranches, if you see the children, Rich, I've looked in the eyes of little girls, little boys who've been brutalized by human traffickers, if you see the women who've been repeatedly raped, if you see the Americans who've died of drug overdoses, you can't defend it. In South Texas, nobody is defending these open borders. And the reason Kamala Harris never goes is because if she went, the TV cameras would follow her, and the news would have to report on what is happening. And so I'll tell you, this is a fundamental choice. And I also believe, look, you and I are both Hispanic.
Yes, sir.
Our community, our culture is fundamentally conservative. The values that resonate in the Hispanic community are faith and family and patriotism. A lot of people don't know the demographic in America with the highest rate of military enlistment is Hispanics. And there is no ethos that is more powerful in the Hispanic community than the American dream. When my father came from Cuba as an immigrant in 1957, he had been imprisoned. He'd been tortured in Cuba. He came to America seeking freedom. He had nothing. He washed dishes making 50 cents an hour, but he was filled with hopes and dreams to achieve the American dream. That's who we are as Hispanics, and that's who we are as Americans.
Absolutely. Really well said. And I think no amount of fake news and propaganda that's put out by Kamala Harris is really going to change that in any way. Senator, do you think that Trump is going to outdo former Governor Bush, former President Bush, in his pursuit of Hispanics in the next election? Or do you think what they're doing is going to have an impact to suppress that vote?
So I do. I think Donald Trump has a real possibility of getting the highest percentage of the Hispanic vote any Republican has in modern times. I can tell you in Texas, we're seeing an enormous movement of Hispanic voters towards my campaign. Historically, I've always gotten north of 40% of the Hispanic vote in Texas, which is better than virtually any other Republican.
Sure.
I think this election is an amazing opportunity. I'm going to tell you an anecdote that's actually very revealing. So I've launched a coalition called Democrats for Cruz. And we have Democrat elected officials throughout South Texas, across the state, who are endorsing my campaign. That includes the Democrat district attorney in Houston, Texas, Kim Ogg, who's a two-term elected Democrat. She's been a Democrat her whole life, but she wants a senator who stands with law enforcement, who wants to lock up criminals, and wants to secure the border. In South Texas, we're seeing elected Democrats supporting my campaign. Sheriff Danny Dominguez in Presidio County. He has been an elected Democrat for 28 years. Presidio County has over 100 miles of border on the Rio Grande River. He's endorsed my campaign. Why? Because he wants a senator who supports law enforcement and supports securing the border. And here's the anecdote I want to tell you.
Yep.
We've erected billboards throughout South Texas, throughout the Rio Grande Valley, of Democrat office holders who've endorsed my campaign. And so the billboards have pictures of me and them, and it says so-and-so is supporting Ted Cruz, re-elect Texas's first Hispanic senator. And now what's interesting, many of them, when we first showed the text of the billboards to them, it said, Democrat so-and-so endorses Ted Cruz. You know what we heard from virtually all of them? Take off the word Democrat. They were great with being on a billboard with me. They were happy with that, but they did not want the word Democrat because in the Rio Grande Valley right now, Democrat is toxic because they look at Democrats and they are open border zealots who are responsible for the invasion of the state of Texas and the invasion of our country.
That's classic. That is classic, when you have people looking at Democrat as a pejorative, like many of us in talk radio do. So I guess it's working. Thank God for that. Senator, I want to thank you for being here. Folks, if you want to help Senator Ted Cruz continue to fight for America as he fights for Texas, go and give him, reach in your pocket deep, deep, deep and give him something. TedCruz.org. He's one of the good guys. He's fighting the good fight, and he never lets up. Senator, I want to thank you for being here, sir. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot.
Thank you, my friend. God bless you.
God bless you. All right, folks, we continue with your calls and more coming up straight ahead. The phone number for that, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And President Trump was in Asheville, North Carolina today doing a rally. For those that listen to the program and think that he's not out there campaigning because you're busy reading fake, phony, fraud headlines, guess who wasn't holding a rally in Asheville, North Carolina today? That's right, Kamala Harris and Tiananmen Tim. So that's what happened in Asheville, and here's what he said.
On my first day back in the Oval Office, I will sign an executive order directing every cabinet secretary and agency head to use every tool and authority at their disposal to defeat inflation and to bring consumer prices rapidly down. We'll do it very rapidly. When you look at the costs of groceries, the cost of bacon, where it went up 4 and 5 times. Bacon. I don't order bacon anymore. It's too expensive. It will be a whole of government effort to raise the standard of living and make American life affordable again.
Like I said the other day, right? When you have people that are very wealthy saying that they no longer are buying something because it's too expensive, that's when you know things are out of control, right? The other day we had the owner of the Chicago Cubs, and he said he stopped buying his favorite cookies because they were now up to $8 a pack. And Trump saying he's not eating bacon because it's too expensive. I believe him. I believe him because, many of us, it's a principle thing, right? And I'm not putting myself in their group. I don't have money like that. Nowhere close. But my point is that, sometimes you just go, no, I'm not going to pay the extra 50 cents per gallon at this gas station. If I could do the U-turn over here and go to that gas station, I like that gas station better anyway. That type of thing. People don't want to do it. It's a matter of principle. Nobody wants to get ripped off. And people are sick and tired, even in Philly, right? Even in the inner city, the bluest of areas. NBC News was in Philadelphia. They interviewed a woman, and she actually got emotional describing how inflation is killing us without killing us. Listen to this.
How hard has inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
What do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us. If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't eat, but I have to go work.
That's as genuine as it gets, right? You've got a mom, paralegal, who they earn well. And she's saying she's a middle-class, middle-income earner. And if she can't afford to buy a $5 pepper, imagine the mom on food stamps. I stand by this woman 100%. She's right. And, this is not just campaign stuff, right? And, yeah, Trump did address this stuff, cut 20, where he talked about the price hikes that the household is seeing. This is almost $30,000, around $28,000. Listen to this.
Her radical liberal policies have caused horrific inflation, decimated the middle class, and gutted the finances of millions and millions of American families. Real incomes are down by over $2,000 a year per family. I mean, that's a lot of money. They're down by that, and it's actually much more if you figure it a certain way. If you add some other categories in, it's much more than that. But down by 2,000 since she took office, and it was just announced that real earnings were down once again at a record rate. The Harris price hikes have cost the typical household $28,000. Congratulations. Hope everyone's happy.
Unbelievable. $28,000. That's why you hear this woman crying, right? Crying while she's doing a TV news interview talking about a $2 bell pepper. She didn't make that up. That's a real story. And I'm sure she could have afforded it, but what was she not going to afford if she spent 100+ % on this one bell pepper? This is serious. And I know not everybody's feeling it, but everybody's feeling it one way or another, right? If Trump is stopping his bacon consumption and our guest who owned the Chicago Cubs, was giving up on his cookies because they were $8 a pack now. Of course this mom and her $2 bell pepper are going to be feeling the crunch. She's not a billionaire. Neither am I. Neither are many of you that are listening. And that's what this boils down to. How are people in this country that are being crushed by this economy, or this woman said it best, they're killing us without killing us? How? How are these people in good faith going to vote for Que Mala Eres? I want your opinions on that and more when we return. 833-482-5337 to the phone we go. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. Is this Que Mala Eres' fault? I say yes, it is. Let's see, where do we go here? 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. Let's go to Chris in Chicago, Illinois, listening on WLS. Go right ahead, sir.
Hey, how are you?
Wonderful.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so I'm currently listening in Chicago. Welcome to Chicago, by the way, Rich.
Thank you.
I've never heard your show before until now. Actually, it was the first day I was expecting the previous show, and I liked it. But what I wanted to get off my chest pretty much is essentially, I was telling your producer. So I am a former, I consider myself a Democrat, first-gen Latino in Chicago. Lately I've been listening to a lot of conservative radio, and I've honestly been, exposed to what I want to consider the truth, honestly, and the fact that, I have a different perspective, and the fact that the media has been, pretty much being biased to one side. I wanted to talk about that transition from Democrat to Republican that I'm considering for this first time in this coming up election. Now, obviously, being a Latino, saying that I support Trump can have somewhat of a stigma, with the fact that, everything that happened the previous election, the rhetoric or the way he pushes rhetoric, that stigma is what I'm trying to deal with. Because, for example, at the workplace, I'm expected to have a particular viewpoint, but then, I'm starting to change that. So that's why I was just wondering, you're a Latino, I'm a Latino, making that switch. I don't know if you ever had to, but.
Yeah, well, no, I never made the switch per se, but I'll say this. I've just been in the fight a whole lot longer, right? I mean, since day one, I was 16 years old and I started a small business and it grew. And by the time I was old enough to vote when I was 18, I was considering voting for Al Gore and, for president. It was, I think that was the first election I could vote in, and first presidential election. And I remember seeing an interview with Al Gore, and he was whining and whining and whining, and he sounded like such a little girl. And, I'm guessing that your dad was probably like my dad or like your uncles and like your abuelo, that, a real man's man, real machista. My dad was a real tough guy. And he would make fun of guys like Al Gore. So, there was no way I was going to vote for a guy like Al Gore. I was complaining about the votes and the hanging chads and this and that. And then you had this tough guy, at least he appeared to be a cowboy, a real G, George W. Bush. And I ended up voting for Bush, and I don't think I voted for a Democrat since 2000. And I say that to say, I've been taking heat for a long time. Being a Puerto Rican kid from Brooklyn, right? People are like, well, what's wrong with you? Why? How dare you? Why? And I get into the fight. You just got to make sure you know your stuff, and you let them know. Listen, I want to pay less taxes. What do you want to do? I want a secure border. What are you looking for? And when you bring it back to them on offense, not on defense, answering their questions, you make sure you ask your own questions and make sure they can answer your questions. And I think you'll see that people start to change their minds. Chris, saludos, mi hermano. Folks, we're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you. Hour number 2, we are live and national. Give us a call, 866-505-4626. That's our legacy line. Of course, our regular line, 833-482-5337 or 833-4-VALDEZ. And the take two. The Taliban is celebrating the 3-year anniversary of the takeover in Afghanistan after the disastrous withdrawal by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And they did a whole parade with all the equipment that was left behind by the Biden administration, Harris administration. They were just on parade, and it was really a difficult thing to look at. I'm looking at some images of it now, and it's very, very disappointing. The New York Times has come out with some admission that Hunter Biden did try to sell influence, and the White House did try to cover it up. We'll get to that at the top of the next hour. We also have the Harris campaign caught editing fake news headlines on Google and paying for them as ads on Google to make it look like they were reporting on her favorably. Now, this is what Kamala Harris's team has been tinkering with search results, editing ads from major publications to make it seem like these major outlets are supporting the vice president's campaign. It's another example of the bias, and this is townhall.com, that we're used to. And we haven't seen this deployed in such a brazen, craven way. So my question is this, and the question of Town Hall here, is this the media and the Democrats within the media trying to stifle the will of the people? Now, I don't know, but all of this is in response to an Axios article that has the headline, Harris Campaign's Google Ads Rewrite News Headlines, and it has a bunch of examples of these headlines. You know, VP Harris's economic vision, lower costs and higher wages. So campaign slogans, in effect, but they link to these ads from USA Today, Reuters, CNN. And these aren't the headlines that originally went with these. Now, I understand it's a campaign and people want to put themselves in the most favorable light, but this is not just something they're posting on their social media that they're rewriting. These are actual ads, right? And it seems that this isn't allowed on Facebook, but it seems to be allowed on Google. And it is a commonplace practice in the commercial advertising world that doesn't violate Google's policies. But the ads mimic real news results from searches that are very closely related. So they have these real news outlets kind of caught off guard. And according to Google and their Ad Transparency Center, the Trump campaign isn't running these types of ads, but this technique has been used by campaigns before. The ads say that they're sponsored, but it's not immediately clear that the text that appears with these real news links is written by the campaigns and not by the media publication that they're advertising. So that's where it becomes misleading. And this has been a big deal today, very big deal, and we'll continue to dig into that. But I want to know what kind of effect that has on polling. And to do that, I want to go to one of the best in the business. This is somebody that has accurately predicted a presidential race in the past. And his name, Robert Cahaly. He's the senior strategist and chief pollster at the Trafalgar Group. He's also the co-host of Polling Plus podcast. Robert Cahaly, welcome, sir.
Hey, great to be here.
Thanks for being here.
That I spent a lot of time listening to over the years.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's fantastic. And I'm really interested in knowing your perspective because, you're a terrific pollster and you know this business better than I do. I'm a layman here, so you're going to have to take it easy on me and really help me understand this stuff. But, I've spoken with, I guess, a colleague of yours, John McLaughlin, who polls for the Trump campaign. And my understanding is that there's a lot of oversampling in some of these polls or undersampling for Republicans that kind of skews the numbers. And I'm wondering, are there, save the Trafalgar polls, but are there any other polls out there that people can actually trust?
Well, my co-host on Polling Plus, Matt Towery, who runs Insider Advantage, our two firms have been ranked in the top 3 in presidential races in the last 2 cycles. And so I have a great confidence in the polls that put out by Matt Towery. And obviously, I think the world of John McLaughlin as well. But most of the other polls come from a media perspective. And, they put forth this idea, well, because we're Republican pollsters, we can't be possibly telling an accurate poll. But because they're the media, then of course they can, because that presupposes that they don't have an agenda. So when you look at all the other polling groups out there, most of them are universities or media outlets, all of them with a left-leaning bias. And somehow they seem to find each other. Even the liberal polling firms seem to partner with these left-leaning groups. So it's kind of ridiculous when you look at what their error rate is. For example, if you take just simply our polls and Insider Advantage out of the 2020 polling averages, then you have Biden winning Florida and North Carolina by at least 3 points each state. That's how much of a bias there was. And those were comfortable victories for Trump. Comfortable. Right. But that's how skewed they were. Whereas we called Wisconsin exactly right within a half a point, and we called it for Biden. You had the New York, the ABC News call it, 14-point lead for Biden. Now, of course, if you go to 538, they rate that ABC as number 2, but that's because ABC owns them. And that's and they use nothing that has anything to do with. I mean, they have all their transparency standards. The only way to rate polling is the error rate. Everything else is incidental. What is your error rate cumulatively over the years? And then that's where we excel. And we can see the thumb on the scales. And John's exactly right. I mean, you see them putting out there, sometimes it's registered voters, sometimes it's likely voters, and sometimes it's adults. And what's interesting is if you look at these polls week after week, it changes which one they put forward.
Right.
1 week in the media outlets say that they're registered adults, and then next week it'll be likely voters. And it's like they get sort through those 3 filters first to figure out the poll that best represents the results they want, and that's the one they publish. There's no consistency. Ours will always be likely voters. We don't change that.
That's really important because I've seen this through the years. You look at them and you see likely voters versus registered voters, and a survey of adults and things like that. And I always wondered, why on earth would you ask just random adults if they're not likely to vote? Or people that are registered. There's a lot of people registered that don't vote. And I guess the question in my head is always a binary question, which is this incompetence or dishonesty? And it seems like from what I'm gleaning from this conversation is that it's their dishonesty.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of thumb on the scales. I mean, it really is. And everything from the way they poll. I mean, we've been very critical about the fact that most of these polls, that they're literally selling you polls to the public to believe that a poll that has 38 questions represents average people. I mean, I don't have to tell you. How many people do you know on a busy Thursday night who are going to answer the phone from a random number they don't know and talk to them long enough to answer 38 questions?
Right.
That's not regular people.
Not happening. Yeah.
That's pseudoscience is what that is. That's not real. And what we do is we focus and specialize on short questionnaires, because the number one question we get is, how long is this going to take? And if you can't tell people, it's just 6 questions, just 2 minutes, just 3 minutes, then they're going to hang up. And so, they wring their hands after 2016. Oh, we skewed toward college-educated people. I'm like, newsflash, you morons. Of course you did. Because you're asking people to answer 50 questions, 38, 42 questions. I mean, I think one of them I saw was 102. Wow. You're not getting regular people to answer those. And of course, the people with less to do, the ones whose life are on less of a schedule, are the ones that have the time. And then, this is the one that I love. Well, you've got to use live callers only. Well, how many people under 50 do you know who will answer the phone from a number they don't recognize and then talk to them?
Yeah. Good luck with that.
I know. I mean, the people they're getting are weirdos. I mean, that's not about weird. That's weird.
People that are waiting for that phone call.
Yeah. I mean, that's the sad part is we always find that the people who want to take polls that much are too much on the left, too much on the right, or they're bored with no one to talk to. None of these are good. None of these represent average voters. So you have to recognize that the world has changed and the way you poll must change. Your old system doesn't work. That's why we call them the Pony Express pollsters, because that's what they're doing. It is an outdated system.
I want to pause right here. We're going to come right back to you. Robert Cahaly. Folks, we're on with Robert Cahaly. He's the chief pollster at the Trafalgar Group. They call it right just about every time. And I want to get into some of his polling and what he thinks is happening in this election, as well as the effect that some of this fake news Google stuff is having on these polls when we come back. Again, our phone number, 833-482-5337. It's Rich Valdez. I'm live with you till 1 a.m. Eastern time, and we're coming right back with Robert Cahaly.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Google, as in the search engine, is censoring results for the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. And instead, we're seeing that Google is suggesting recommended search results for Ronald Reagan, Hitler, Bob Marley, anything you can think of, but not Donald Trump. I actually tested this out, and anyone at home can do it as well. Go to Google, type in attempted assassination on, and even when you start writing DONALD, Donald Trump does not come up. I think this is ominous for the role of big tech in the upcoming U.S. election.
Now, that is a report from Sky News over in Australia, and that's news over there. I'm surprised we're not hearing more news on that here. But again, I mentioned that this practice, it has been banned by Facebook, where advertisers can edit the text from this instant article news link. And Google argues that because these ads on search are prominently labeled as sponsored, they're easily distinguishable from search results, which I don't think is entirely true, but I'll bite a little bit. But ultimately, this is an issue where people are being led to believe something that isn't necessarily the case. It almost looks as if these are endorsements, if you will, or at least a tacit endorsement or favorable coverage when it may not even be favorable coverage. And while I guess that is, in effect, the job of a campaign, I don't know that it doesn't have an effect on polling. So I want to, again, tap in and get some of the expertise from Robert Cahaly, our guest, who's the chief pollster at the Trafalgar Group. And Robert Cahaly, things like this, whether it be social media posts or, paid sponsored search results or anything else that may have, I guess, an undue influence. What type of effect do these have on polls?
They have a great deal of effect on the type of people that are still undecided. Because really, when you look at these polls, most of the folks are in one camp or the other. And so there's that little sliver in the middle, this low information voters. And I always describe them as they're the kind of people who don't watch conservative news. They don't watch left-leaning news. They don't watch Trump rallies. They don't watch Harris rallies. they just kind of rely on, I mean, a lot of them don't watch the local news. They just kind of rely on what they get on the periphery, what is fed into their phone on Apple News or Google News, and, you know, what they get with search results. And the thing is, these are the kind of people, and this is why this tactic that Harris is using is so effective. These are the kind of people who Google search something and don't actually click on the article, just look at the headlines, and that information goes into their head. It comes predominant. And they know that because when you click on the articles, it's exposed that it's not exactly what the headline said, but they don't read the articles. They just look at the thing and go, oh, okay, well, that's that. And so, yes, it has a tremendous effect, and that's why manipulation on social media has such a big effect. All this stuff is particularly effective in getting to people who don't get a lot of information.
Folks, we're on with Robert Cahaly, chief pollster and senior strategist at the Trafalgar Group. And I agree with you. I think that this does have a lot of effect, and it's incumbent upon all of us to have multiple sources of news. I make sure I check out as much as I can. I check CNN, MSNBC, some of the far off-the-charts conspiracy theory websites that people tell me I shouldn't look at. I watch everything because you want to get a sense of what's out there. And I have a lot of people that text me things, and I'm like, wow, where'd that come from? But I realize not everybody has that benefit, and this is the result, right? You get people that think one way versus the other. Now, this is more, I guess, of a strategy question, but I see Robert Cahaly, Kamala Harris running as if she's not vice president. And I find this fascinating because if I were vice president and running for president, I would run as vice president and say, look, I've been in the White House, I've been in the administration, we've been here. But she's not doing that because their record is trash. How have we seen this before? Have you seen this before? And do you think it's going to work?
Well, I mean, that's the thing is she's running with the trappings of vice president. You know, the Air Force Two in the background and all that.
Right.
But she's not owning the policy. She's really running as an outsider. But that's the point. Again, we're going to low information voters who don't really understand that she should be taking credit or taking blame for what's happened before. So as she presents as, here's what I'm going to do as president, the logical question is, what did you do? But that's not a question that a low information voter asks. Right. They have two people running for president, and they're both saying, here's what I want to do. And they literally compare them on equal footing, regardless of the fact. Yeah.
Yeah, before we run out of time, I want to get, where do you and Trafalgar weigh in on this 2024 election in the minute or two that we have left?
Yeah, we just finished a round of polling with Insider Advantage. That they did. We kind of divided up the battleground states. We did 4 and they did 3, and so ours quickly are. We had a 1-point lead for Trump in Arizona, a 2-point lead in Pennsylvania, a 3-point lead in North Carolina, a 4-point lead in Nevada, and Insider Advantage had a 1-point lead for Trump in Georgia, and a 1-point lead for Trump in Wisconsin, and a 2-point Harris lead in Michigan. And so all of this was within the margin of error. And so I would say this election is very much hotly contested by either side right now.
Ooh, that means we got to bring you back so we can get some electoral college predictions. Robert Cahaly, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for joining us tonight.
I'm at least 2 of those. Thank you.
I love that. And you got a good mustache. All right, folks, we're coming right back with the hacking of the Trump campaign. I'm Rich Valdez.
Listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Iran has launched a sweeping months-long cyber attack targeting both U.S. presidential campaigns, according to a new report out by Google. Researchers for the tech giant revealing today that Iranian hackers, known as APT-42, used malicious links to target the personal email accounts of roughly a dozen people back in May and June, including members of the Biden-Harris administration. Google calls these phishing attacks wide-ranging and ongoing. The revelations come on the heels of another security report, this one from Microsoft, last week, indicating that a high-ranking campaign official was the target of a similar Iranian-backed attack. The FBI confirmed Monday that it has launched an investigation.
So you've got the FBI investigating the alleged hack of the Trump campaign, where they apparently got into the system and obtained the J.D. Vance vetting documents. And then you also have this DDoS attack that Elon Musk was discussing that slowed down his huge interview with Donald Trump, which as of noon today had, I think, 2.6 billion views. And I want to get to the bottom of this because I think we got to know. And I'm going to do it with our guest, Julio Rivera. He's the founder of rivetmedia.com. And he's a political commentator and a researcher, and he talks about cybersecurity as well. Julio Rivera, welcome back, my brother.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank God, bro. Thank God. And so I want to talk about these two different things, right? Obviously, the Trump campaign getting hacked, and then this separate story of the DDoS attack. And then if there's still time, I want to talk a little bit about Google, right? Google is censoring Trump, and they're also allowing the Harris campaign to pay for fake news ads. So there's a lot to get into there. But let's start with this cyber attack or this hack on the Trump campaign.
Yeah, well, right now, the biggest cyber threat, I think, internationally are these advanced persistent threat groups. That's what the APTs are. People talk about when they talk about these sorts of attacks. And, you know, there's four main countries where a lot of this activity originates from. You know, you got Russia, you've got China, you've got North Korea, and you have Iran. And Iran has a particular interest in right now in attacking, supposedly they say, both sides of the American political landscape. But in particular here, they've been hitting the Trump campaign. This APT group, which is also known as Muddy Water or Seed Worm, attacked the campaign through phishing emails. And phishing emails are things that are very common, typical. People get them all the time. You might get them for like a scam. It'll say something like, you know, put in your credentials here to reset your password for an app that you may have or something like that. And it sends you to like a fake page, you know, for you to put in credentials, and they'll grab credentials for you, or they'll send you like a fake document or something that looks like a PDF that's legitimate. And then when you download it, it installs like a Trojan into your computer, which you have no idea that it's in there, but it's like tracking your computer activity or your keystrokes or, you know, anything that may be on your computer. So basically, I mean, that's basically what the Trump campaign has been dealing with here. And as far as from what we know, they've taken like the J.D. Vance vetting docs and other documents which are critical to the Trump campaign, potentially, I guess, to try to find if they can damaging information or, you know, other information which they may find or deem of importance to them or to the campaign or to the election. So
what do we know about this specific attack? Other than getting these J.D. Vance documents, do we know if they were, you know, was this a vulnerability, or were they able to get around the security network that they have, like the Barracuda or whatever it is?
No, I mean, basically, a lot of these hacks, this one specifically, a phishing attack, it winds up, the attack vector is right through someone's email. So this isn't something where I think it was even that sophisticated. You have different types of attack vectors, like obviously with the CrowdStrike. Well, actually, CrowdStrike wasn't really a cyber attack. But let's say like with SolarWinds, right?
SolarWinds. That was an email thing too, right?
Yeah, no, what it was actually a software update, which was like CrowdStrike, but CrowdStrike was internal, unfortunately. They didn't vet properly their own software update, and there were vulnerabilities that were, it was very easily pierced. And there were some issues within them. But what happens is, let's say you have a massive piece of software like Orion, which is what the SolarWinds was, that, like tens of thousands of companies are using this software. If there's an issue, or if somebody's able to inject some sort of a malware, which was with Sunburst malware, which was injected into a SolarWinds update, then all of these companies are compromised in one fell swoop. So I don't think that that's really what happened in particular with this Iranian attempt to pierce the Trump campaign. What it was a fundamental lack of due diligence within campaign staffers to not properly look at when you get an email with an attachment on it, you've got to either scan the attachment or you've got to really look at the email to make sure that you know where it's coming from, that it's legitimate. I mean, because that's the majority of the attacks that are happening on a daily basis against everyday Americans and businesses, boil down to people just clicking on things that they shouldn't be clicking.
Yeah. I totally get that. And I think that happens to, whether you're guilty or not, right? Whether you're doing things you shouldn't be doing or you're just trying to survive in the internet world and you click on something accidentally and boom, like you said, something that looks like a PDF but really is something else, and now they're tracking you. Folks, we're on with Julio Rivera, and we're going to come back, continue this discussion on the alleged Iranian hacking of the Trump campaign, and I want to shift into this DDoS attack that they're talking about with respect to Elon Musk's conversation with El Trompito. That's all coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
They're looking at it, and they're doing it very professionally, and it looks like it's Iran doing it, because Iran is no friend of mine, and, a lot of bad signals get sent. But it looks like it's Iran doing it, and the reason is because I was strong on Iran, and I was protecting people in the Middle East that maybe they aren't so happy about that. So that's what it seems to be, Iran.
It seems to be Iran, says El Trompito from the hack again on his campaign. We're discussing that with Julio Rivera. And Julio, I want to, again, put a pin in this Iranian stuff, or actually not really put a pin in it, but really expand it to this DDoS attack that was, some say a glitch and whatnot, that slowed down the 2.6 billion plays of the interview between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Was this also an Iranian attack?
Well, I actually want to clarify a couple of points on that, because Elon Musk initially came out and said that he thought it was a DDoS, or a distributed denial of service attack, against the servers of Twitter. There is some controversy now within the industry as to whether or not that would have been possible, in a sense, because the way that it would work is if, let's say, Iran or another entity wanted to commit this sort of an attack against Twitter at the time that Donald Trump was on, the way that it's thought that Twitter is set up is that their servers are all one and the same, whether you're on the regular Twitter feed or whether you're actually within the Spaces product on Twitter, which is where this interview was being hosted.
Right.
So, in theory, if they launched, if some entity wanted to, execute a DDoS or DDoS attack against Twitter at the time that Donald Trump was on, it would have affected the main Twitter feed. So people who were just on Twitter going through their timelines or whatever, they would have also had issues. So it's not completely confirmed at this point. The thing was that's what Elon Musk went ahead and kind of alluded to when they were having issues getting the interview up and going. It could be that, or we could to look at it and put a positive spin. It's more like, I guess, they had so many people, at the same time trying to.
They broke the internet?
Yeah, they broke the internet. Yeah, it was just a classic case of there's so much excitement for President Trump and wanting to hear what his policy positions were. And this really groundbreaking interview with two of the most powerful, intelligent, consequential people that exist today, having this important discussion, that it did cause, a service outage, unfortunately. So, but we don't know for sure. There still could have been maybe some element of an attempted, some sort of an attempted disturbance, but it's not fully confirmed. Unfortunately, when Elon said that, everybody sort of ran with that before really being able to clarify the details.
All right, so we don't have a smoking gun from an anonymous AOL account for this one.
I mean, at this point, probably not, completely at this point. Yeah, it's going to be something where later on, I guess, in the coming weeks, we'll probably learn more. We just won't hear about it anymore. We'll just be concentrating and focusing more on the fact that, it was an important conversation that really, you said, 2.4 billion people at this point have watched it. So obviously, people around the world are really interested in what President Trump has to say, in advance of the election.
Yeah. And, I find it interesting. Google is claiming that Iran has also targeted Harris and Biden after Trump was saying that he was hacked. What can you tell us about that? Have you heard these claims as well?
Well, I mean, what winds up happening is, countries like Iran, obviously with what's going on in the Middle East right now, and the American position should obviously be to, defend our very, very important ally and very critical ally right there in the Middle East. You know what I mean? We have to defend Israel. So, I mean, it's one of those things where any information that they can get in terms of what the future policy positions of either campaign, depending on who wins, what type of information they can get, if there's anything that they can get damaging, depending on which campaign they feel is going to do either, more to facilitate the Iranian position, going forward, from 2025 going forward. They want to help. They want to interfere. And this is the one thing with election interference is that, everybody has kind of painted, this Russian monster of Russia's always interfering in elections. And now Iran wants to interfere in elections. And, but the truth of the matter is I think most every country, whether it's China, whether it's the United States, everybody sort of interferes in people's elections. The United States have been doing it for years, particularly if you look at the history of, the United States interfering in Israeli elections under President Barack Obama. President Barack Obama spent a lot of taxpayer money to try to, prevent the election of Netanyahu in the past, because of his extreme positions that are, you can obviously say, Barack Obama probably wasn't the greatest, ally of Israel during his time as president.
Yeah, I hear that, brother. I hear that. They're a hired gun for the biggest ally they can find. And quite likely that's whoever supports JCPOA and whoever is, going to be anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. And in this case, I guess if they're hacking the Biden campaign, or the Harris campaign, I should say, it's likely to help her. Julio Rivera, I want to get a little bit of political with you. some of your insight and analysis when we come back. Folks, we're coming right back with Julio Rivera. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
How much does enthusiasm predict what's going to happen at the polls?
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, the thing that we put out those poll numbers yesterday, New York Times, Siena College, we covered them. I showed you the Ipsos polling, all of which that showed Kamala Harris with clear momentum, enthusiasm potentially on her side. But I just want to take a step back and sort of point out we've kind of been here before. So August 13th, how far were the polls off in Michigan, Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin? And this is in 2016 and 2020. Trump was estimated both times around and by significant margins. Take a look here. In 2016, the average poll in those states that I mentioned, those Great Lake battleground states, Trump was underestimated by 9 points on average at this point in 2016. How about 2020? It wasn't a one-off. Look at this. He was underestimated by 5 points on average. And, of course, Kamala Harris's advantage in those New York Times, Siena College polls were 4 points in each of these key battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. The bottom line is this. If you have any idea, if you're a Kamala Harris fan and you want to rip open the champagne bottle, pop that cork, do not do it. Donald Trump is very much in this race. If we have a polling shift like we've seen in prior years from now until the final result, Donald Trump would actually win. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that he is very much in this ballgame based upon where he is right now and compare that to where he was in prior years.
That's CNN's Harry Enden with Sarah Seidner saying Trump is still in the race. He's more popular now than he was in 2020 and 2016, and that Kamala Harris fans should not pop their champagne yet. Julio Rivera, in the minute or so we have to go, how do you react to that?
Rich, like I know, I mean, this is a discouragement campaign. Every major poll in 2016 had Donald Trump losing to Hillary Clinton and magically had every other Republican candidate actually beating Hillary Clinton. So they were trying to steer the voter enthusiasm away from Donald Trump to hopefully install another candidate outside of him that could potentially lose to Hillary Clinton because they knew that Trump couldn't be beat, just like in 2020. And, they're going to do everything they can to try to tell you that Donald Trump is unelectable. Meanwhile, if you look at the surge of support that he has on the ground amongst activists at his rallies, I mean, this guy's bigger than the Rolling Stones. This guy had over 100,000 people in New Jersey, in our state. I mean, that's more people that were in, the July jobs report from Joe Biden. And these are the amount of people that are showing up for Donald Trump. I mean, I really don't believe that he can lose. They're going to try to tell you that he's going to lose, to try to keep you from voting.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's suppression at its finest. And I feel the same way. I mean, we have this program that reaches a lot of places. And we're on in 9 of the top 10 markets in the country. We reach a lot of states, and I take all the dissenters. I try to take them first, and we don't get that many because I think by and large the audience tends to skew conservative. But typically a conservative talk radio audience is half conservative, half liberal. And we don't get that many people that say, I hate Trump, because the reality is I think there's a lot of people out there that used to not like Trump that are like, look, I'm ready to go back. And they're looking to put an end to this whole Biden-Harris thing. Now, with the little bit of time we have remaining, Julio, let everybody know your website and how they can find you.
Yeah, definitely. I want you guys that are concerned about cybersecurity and learning and staying up to date and being safe online and on the internet, whether you're an individual or a business, to check out rivitmedia.com. It's RIVIT media.com. And we have a great new video that we've created. It's a cyber apocalypse mini movie, which really goes through how devastating a cyber apocalypse can be. And you can find that on YouTube on the Rivet Media page. It's called 2024 Cyber Apocalypse. What would massive cyber-related chaos look like?
Thank you, brother. Julio Rivera, check him out at rivetmedia.com. My brother, thanks for the call and for being here tonight. Hope to talk to you soon. And folks, Open Phone America coming up right now, 833-4-VALDEZ. Coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of the program. The phone number, if you want to give us a call, it's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. We like to call this our Open Phone America. Why? Because that's what Larry King called it. And, of course, this is a tradition that goes back to when I was born, back in 1978 when Larry King was the host of this show. And for the 15 years he was here and the 30 years that Jim Bohannon was here after that, he maintained that tradition and the format of this program. And who would we be to change that type of tradition? So we will do it, you and I, together tonight. We continue that tradition, and I'm grateful for it. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. And we've had a lot of discussion tonight, right? We've talked about with Ted Cruz, we talked about why Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States, candidate for president, why she's hiding from the media. Why won't she sit for an interview? What is she afraid of? Saying she's going to do it at the end of the month, 2 weeks from now. And it's already been 24 days since she's been in this race for president. I know what she's afraid of putting her foot in her mouth, scrutiny. She doesn't want to answer the tough questions. Meanwhile, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, what did he do? He walked right into the lion's den, right? He went into a big media convention, the National Association of Black Journalists, and he said, I'll sit down for an interview. Why not? And as expected, he was attacked because the media isn't always friendly to Trump, right? And he always points at them and says, oh, look at them, the camera's back there. Look at the fake news. and I can tell you that animosity is real. There's a lot of people out there that don't like the media. I was at a Trump rally, and one guy was looking at me funny. And he was like, you one of those pedophile weirdos that works for the fake news? I was like, no, actually, I'm not. I'm actually not one of those. So that was pretty funny to me, though. I thought it was really funny. But that is what's going on here. And he's out there on the campaign trail, and he was in Asheville, North Carolina today. And he's asking a very, very important question. Does anybody feel like they're making more money now than they did when he was president? Listen to this.
Kamala Harris wants to talk about her fantasies, and they are everything she says. If I say something, she said, that's what she's going to do, too. I say, what are you doing? But she wants to talk for the future about these fantasies, but really what she needs to explain is the present suffering that she's caused along with Joe Biden. And by the way, they're a team. You know, she's trying to throw him overboard. She doesn't want to know who he is anymore. She doesn't want to talk about him anymore. She says, let's not bring this guy in. Let's not bring him in. No, they were a team. He appointed her as border czar, and she did the worst job in the history of borders, I will tell you. Does anyone here feel richer under Kamala Harris than Crooked Joe than you were during the Trump administration? Is anything less expensive under Kamala Harris and Crooked Joe? I mean, we had inflation that I don't believe we've ever had inflation like that. You can go back a long way. Are you better off now with Harris and Biden than you were with a person named President Donald J. Trump? Do you know him? He's a nice gentleman. Nice gentleman.
Now, let me tell you, El Trompito went on to talk about how this inflation is hurting everything, down to even Tic Tacs, right? And he pulled out a box of Tic Tacs, the candy, and the breath mint, and he shows it to the crowd. And he says, this is Tic Tacs, under my watch. And then he pulls out this miniature-sized Tic Tac. Again, Tic Tacs are small, right? Probably about the size of a Matchbox car. He pulls out something that's even smaller than that, probably about the size of a nickel. I didn't even know they made Tic Tacs that small, boxes that small. And he pulls it out and he said, this is what's going on with Kamala Harris. And it was very funny, and it was, I think, very effective. It shows shrinkflation and how little we get for the things that haven't gone up, right? And that's really the problem between shrinkflation and inflation, between you getting a smaller burger when you go to the burger place, between you getting less potato chips in that bag of potato chips, and the increased cost. We're in pretty bad shape, right? I mean, I know it. I feel it too. So I think he hit the nail on the head when he was talking about that. And also, I played this one earlier, but his plan is to get all of the federal agencies to make cuts. Listen to number 19.
On my first day back in the Oval Office, I will sign an executive order directing every cabinet secretary and agency head to use every tool and authority at their disposal to defeat inflation and to bring consumer prices rapidly down. We'll do it very rapidly. When you look at the costs of groceries, the cost of bacon, where it went up 4 and 5 times. Bacon, I don't order bacon anymore. It's too expensive. It will be a whole of government effort to raise the standard of living and make American life affordable again.
A whole of government operation so that we can eat bacon again. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Now, interestingly, somebody that came out today trying to, I guess, sing accolades for Kamala Harris, but instead really gave us a little bit of a smoking gun, was Susan Rice, Obama's advisor that worked in the administration here. She says that Harris has been an integral architect of the policies of the Biden administration. This is golden. If Susan Rice tells you that this is the case, then this is the case. Right? Because the Biden-Harris administration agenda was designed. An integral architect was Kamala Harris. This is a big deal. Because while Kamala Harris is running as some sort of outsider that had nothing to do with Biden, who's Biden? I don't know. We love you, Joe. We did it, Joe. She's responsible for inflation. She owns inflation. Inflation is hers. The border is hers. She didn't get a single vote from a single Democrat voter in the primary, right? Nobody voted for her because she wasn't up for any election. 24 days that she's now announced that she's running for president. 24 days. Unbelievable. Not a single press conference. Not a single sit-down interview. Softball interview with her favorite fake news journalist. Nothing. That's really something, I think. And saying we're going to go another 14 or 15 days, perhaps, before that happens. Anyway, I want you to hear what Susan Rice had to say, basically implicating Kamala Harris and attaching her to Joe Biden.
I think it's very important to remember that this has been the Biden-Harris agenda. Kamala Harris has been an integral architect and executor of the policies of the Biden-Harris administration. And when you talk about the important business that she is committed to continuing and finishing, things like paid family leave, making permanent the child tax credit, making child care more affordable, raising the minimum wage, respecting workers, and helping to strengthen unions. These are elements of a policy framework that she devised as part of a key part of the Biden administration and is keen to see through to the finish line. So there will be important, as there should be, aspects of continuity in many policy areas. But of course, the vice president will outline her vision and
where she sees opportunities to advance their collective agenda, the Biden-Harris collective agenda, and take it further forward. I think we all look forward to hearing that. But this notion that she somehow doesn't deserve credit for and isn't part of and wasn't an integral architect of the Biden-Harris administration agenda is not only false, it's frankly somewhat bizarre and offensive.
It is bizarre and offensive. So stop offending her and stop being bizarre, everybody. She is an integral architect of the Biden-Harris agenda. I love it. I would put that on loop on a TV commercial and run it for the Trump campaign if I were in there, because that's what needs to be done. The more people realize that and remember and are reminded often that Kamala Harris is the vice president and that she is 50% of Joe Biden's policies. Every policy there, she owns half of it. Absolutely. Because she always had a chance to say, no, thank you. I don't like this and I'm out. Or I don't like this and I'm going to challenge you on it. She had the opportunity to actually do the 25th Amendment and never did. She allowed him to sit there and not be well. That didn't fall flat on me. I didn't forget about it. Anyway, we're going to talk more about the fake news and how they cover things up. And can Kamala Harris actually distance herself from Joe Biden? I want to get your thoughts and reactions on that when we come back. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
When did you guys learn that Vice President Harris wants to distance herself from Bidenomics?
Why do you think that?
Axios is now reporting that she is hoping to distance herself from President Biden's unpopularity on the economy. Can you blame her?
Do you know this is the Biden-Harris administration? Are you aware that this is the Biden-Harris administration? And she is indeed the vice president.
But if the president's policies on the economy were working, or if they were popular, wouldn't he still be the candidate?
You literally just had the chair of the CEA here who laid out a pretty robust point by point about the economy and what has happened under the Biden-Harris administration. And I thought it was pretty convincing.
Pretty convincing, says KJP Karine Jean-Pierre. And she wants to remind you, this is the Biden-Harris administration, and she is the vice president. Well, thank you, Karine, because that's actually what I've been doing all night, reminding everybody that she can't run away from these policies. She has to own inflation. She has to own the border. She has to own the mess that's happening. Every crime, every little girl that's been raped by an illegal alien, she has to own all of that because the buck has to stop with her. Why? Because we can't find Joe El Baboso Biden, right? He's hiding. He's hiding out. He's in his basement or whatever he's doing. And, of course, if you don't know who you're voting for, then you're not black, right? And he's got hairy legs. Let's go to the phones. I want to get your thoughts on some of this stuff. 833-482-5337. Can Kamala Harris actually distance herself from Joe Biden effectively as she tries to run as an outsider? I say she cannot, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Let's see. Where do we go? We go to Sedona, Arizona, and we check in with Pat, who's streaming the show, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead, sir.
Hey, Rich, you know what? I think at first you'll probably be successful because of the media. You know how we're talking about the media tonight? I say the media has not lied so much. They lie as much as the secretary, wherever that John Breyer person that speaks for the president on the interviews. God Almighty, we just heard it. Gosh Almighty, we just heard her. And it's such a lie. And you're right. Every child, every person killed, every person robbed, every person threatened by these illegal aliens brought in by her lack of due diligence on our border is going to stick like her to flypaper. I mean, she's not going to be able to pull it off. And it's just going to be her downfall. And don't be surprised, but I have a feeling there is a October surprise in all this election. They may be dumping her and Wise and getting somebody else that will have no stickiness to anything. But will the Democrats go along with it is what I'm thinking. I'm amazed because I have a lot of friends that are Democrats. They're pretty mad about her, and they didn't get to vote for her. I mean, I said, well, you guys have to realize your party has been stolen. And it's like the poor Muslims. Their religion was stolen by these radical mullahs. They have destroyed a religion that's not that violent. And it's like the Democratic Party. Their party's been stolen by these people who are going to try to change our country to fit what they want, not what everybody in our country wants.
Well, Pat, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that the media has been so dishonest with things. And I think you're right. They've been very dishonest, and that might actually help her. And she's part of the problem you're describing, right? Que mala eres and Tiananmen Tim, these are two radicals, right? They're not by any stretch of anybody's imagination moderate, run-of-the-mill, everyday type of candidates. They might look a little bit less radical than Bernie Sanders, but I don't think their positions are any different from what I've heard, from what I've seen. When you look at their records, they are those people, right? When was the last time you ever heard Kamala Harris or even Tim Walz talk about, a prayer for this country? God bless America. Maybe even something like talking about liberty, talking about what this country's all about, patriotism, love of country. I haven't heard any of that stuff. Even Biden, at least the other day in the Oval Office, said, we're going to make America great again, right? He said that. Now, while I'm sure that was, part of the reason they wanted to get rid of him and they hide him in the basement, the reality is he understands that people need to understand that you love this country that we also love. Just because people may not want to fly a flag outside their house doesn't mean that they don't love living in this place where they're safe, where they can earn a living, where their children can pretty much move around unencumbered. Maybe except for those big Democrat-run cities where you have to, go outside your house with a war helmet on and a flak jacket and a bulletproof vest. But you take, the Democrats out of office and you allow people to defend themselves and exercise their Second Amendment. And you put cops back on the street and you don't defund ICE. You don't defund the police. You don't abolish ICE. And voila, look at that. Things get better like they were before, like they were when El Trumpito was in office. Pat, I want to thank you for your call, brother. I do appreciate it. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the media, because Pat brought up a good point there. And he said it's the media and they're not honest. And I think he's right. And, you got Joe Biden out there saying that he's beaten inflation. You've got multiple media organizations saying that, initially saying that there were possible gunshots on July 13th at the Trump rally. Some were also reporting that there were loud noises, not an assassination attempt, but possible gunshots or loud noises. And I remember those. I read some of them on the air, the headlines from the articles. Trump escorted off stage after loud noises. Come on. You got to do better. Folks, we're coming right back. Your calls and more coming up. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. I am Rich Valdez, and this is Open Phone America. Don't go anywhere.
now. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you till 1 a.m. Eastern time. So what is that? I guess 11 p.m. Pacific time. I hope I did the math right. Anyway, the phone number 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ is the number if you want to join us. I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys. I see we have calls from Idaho, Alabama, Montana, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Indiana, and more coming in. Looking forward to speaking with you. I want to play a quick clip for you because earlier we spoke with Senator Ted Cruz, and it was a great conversation. If you missed it, make sure you check it out on the replay. You can always listen to that at richvaldez.com. That's Valdez with an S, and it's absolutely free. You can also subscribe to the podcast, which I highly recommend. And This Is America's been on hiatus for the summertime, but it's coming back, so I recommend you also subscribe to my short-form podcast called This Is America with Rich Valdez. Subscribe to both Rich Valdez America at Night, the radio show replay, and the separate exclusive podcast, This Is America with Rich Valdez. It's different from what's on the show typically, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Now, Mayor John Giles, he is a Republican from Arizona who doesn't like El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. And he has instead decided to become a Republican for Que Mala Eres. He's the co-chair of Republicans for Harris in Arizona. Listen to this.
And I think the time has come for us as Arizona Republicans to admit the obvious and to start saying the quiet part out loud, which is that our party's nominee is not qualified for office, and that we need to vote for the adult in the room, and that is Kamala Harris.
Adult? Unbelievable. Listen, Trump not qualified. I think he could have said a lot of things. Not qualified is probably the wrong word choice because, I mean, we all know what the qualifications are, right? Natural born citizen, 35 years old. Okay, works for me. This guy's got to reread his Constitution. But he's not alone. He's got a couple of acolytes there with him. Robin Shaw, she's a former state representative in Arizona, and she's co-chairing this with him, Republicans for Harris. Listen to this.
It is time to put partisan loyalties aside and vote for the leadership that will truly represent the people we want to be in the eyes of the world. Character matters.
Oh, then you should try having some lady. Instead of being a fake Republican or a rhino Republican in name only, maybe, just maybe, you should have some character and say, look, I'm a Democrat. I've always been a Democrat. I just pretend to be a Republican. Now, maybe you are a Republican and you really just disagree, and that's fine, right? Look, like Mittens Romney. I don't think Mittens Romney would actually fit in the Democrat Party. I don't. He doesn't vote with them enough of the time, although he's voted with them plenty of the time. I think Joe Manchin would make a better Republican than Mitt Romney would make a Democrat. Actually, if Mitt Romney were a Democrat, he'd probably be one of our favorite Democrats, right? He'd be more like a Manchin because of his positions on a lot of things. We'd be like, man, he's one conservative Democrat. But instead, we look at him as a super liberal Republican. But the reality here is, I think these people are fake, phony, and fraud. Why? Because in Arizona, come on. It's Arizona. You tell me you're a Republican in New York and you don't like Trump, I could swallow that a lot easier than I can swallow a Republican in Arizona, especially ones like this. Mayor John Giles and Robin Shaw, former state rep. You know how many people are in Arizona in elected office? We've spoken with a bunch of people. I've spoken to a bunch of people in Arizona, and they were all with El Trompito, pretty much all the way. And that's the problem. She says we have to put partisan loyalty aside. That's fine if you want to do that, if you think that's a good thing. I don't. I think partisan loyalty is a good thing, right? Just like matrimonial loyalty, right? If you are married, you should be loyal to your wife. If you're in a party, you should be loyal to your party. Now, is it a blind loyalty? No. If there's something wrong going on, then of course not. That's what primaries are for. Run against them. But Trump won this thing fair and square. He actually did get people to vote for him in the primary, unlike Que Mala Eres. Anyway, I say all of that to say I think both of these guys are fake, phony, and fraud. And I want to extend an invitation to Mayor John Giles, Republicans for Harris, co-chair, and to Robin Shaw, and either one of them that wants to come on this program and Tell me, why this audience should believe they're conservative bona fides. Happy to have that conversation, because my take is that if character really matters, they'll come on the show and we'll have that discussion. And I'm looking forward to their response. Anyway, the media. The media has been running a number on Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, saying all sorts of things. And I got a clip from there that I want to play for you. But first, I want to go to the phones and get your reaction to what is going on with these Republicans for Harris. And do you think there's more than two of them? Let's find out. Let's go to Larry, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Larry, go right ahead. Welcome.
Oh, yeah, I'll be surprised if Trump wins this election. I voted Republican ever since I was 18.
What makes you think he won't win?
I even voted for McCain and what's her name? The lady.
A great example. McCain is an Arizona Republican, very wishy-washy. But what makes you think that Trump doesn't have a shot here when he's within, up by a point or down by 2 points? It seems to be neck and neck.
Put it this way, I'll be shocked.
Why would you be shocked? What is the reasoning, Larry?
I'll be so happy too. I'll be so happy that he wins.
Larry, answer my question for the love of Jesus. Why do you think he can't win?
Right now, as I'm speaking, they got mail-in ballots that are counterfeit, and they're going to mail them in. Even if 10% of these migrants vote, there's so many that got, sworn in as citizenship, that could tip the election. I'll be surprised, and a lot of them are going to vote, Democrat
that's a legitimate
because
fear.
they don't want to get, and they don't want to get deported. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. I totally get it. I think there's that theory that if I don't vote the right way, they're going to kick me out. I have to be loyal to these people and help them out. Look, I'm with you. I totally agree with you. I think that there's a fear there. I also think Trump has a very legitimate chance of winning, only because I think he does. I think that there's a lot of people. If we're looking at just Republicans, yeah, you're right. He's going to lose every day. But the reality is he's appealed to way more than Republicans. And I think we're also going to be surprised at how many Democrats and undecideds and independents cross over, which is why you see so many articles every day saying most people have their minds made up. Why would you report like that's news? Most people have their mind made up. That's not news. That's pure conjecture. It's not even based on a poll. And this is why they're doing this to suppress the vote, to get people to think that it's signed, sealed, delivered. Kamala Harris is in. And again, you may totally be right. I just think it's too early to count our chickens before they hatch. Larry, thank you for the call. I appreciate you, brother. Larry in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Good man, good call. Let us continue. Another good man who never agrees with me, loves to argue. Let's go to Jerome, South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, go for it.
Hey, Rich, you know what? I thank God every day that Donald Trump became a Republican, because there ain't no way in hell I'd still be a Democrat if he was still in our party. Man, thank you, Donald, for leaving and becoming your true self, finding your true calling as a Republican. And that Nikki Haley, she has no shame. I mean, every time she goes on TV, doesn't she remember what he called her bird brain and making fun of her husband? And where's her husband? Where's her husband?
Yeah.
He wouldn't know anything about military service since he had bone spurs, it kept him out of serving the country that he loved so much, right? So,
yes.
Hey, I'm just thank God every day Donald Trump became a Republican, because now he can make all you Republicans, y'all can be his slave until,
Well, how is anybody going to be a slave? See, this is why I give you all the rope you want to hang yourself, right? I let you say everything you want to say. Then you say something crazy. He's going to make all of y'all his slave. How is he going to? He's already been president. Who did he enslave while he was president?
He enslaved people like you.
How? By putting more money in my pocket and giving me a tremendous opportunity to have a broadcasting career that's been going up, 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 and up. We've added 25 new stations. Why? Because he's in the race. If it wasn't for El Trompito being in the race, this stuff wouldn't even be that interesting.
And the highest deficit in American history and getting shot at because people hate his ass. Oh, yeah. real good. Yeah,
I think that's a badge of honor, Jerome. Honestly, I think the fact that people are trying to kill him shows how much of an impact that he actually makes on the body politic. The fact that his policies made a difference. The fact that you just take a walk around your neighborhood and start asking people. Next time you go to the barber shop, just say, how many of you guys are voting for Trump? I think you're going to be incredibly surprised by how many people have the courage to tell you they like things better when Trump was the guy. Because I'm seeing it every day. People come to me just because they know I have this radio show, and they go, you know what? Your guy is it. You're right. This guy was the real deal. This lady's not fit for this, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm in a very blue state. You're in South Carolina. I'm in Jersey. I'm in New York. And I'm hearing that. So I think you're going to be very pleasantly surprised, or maybe not so pleasantly for you, but it'll be pleasant for me. Jerome in Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Oh, and before you go, I wanted to say Nikki Haley, I think Trump didn't need her support. He didn't need it, right? He beat her fair and square. He didn't need for her to come and say it's customary, it's expected, it's the right thing to do. It would look horrible on her behalf if she did that. If she said, I'm not endorsing Trump the way he said he might not do, right? That would look bad on her, like she's not a team player. But ultimately, what happens here is if she wants to have any future in the Republican Party, she's got to play ball. At least that's my take on it, because this party, the Republican Party, during the Obama years was fractured, and then it was put on life support. And enter Donald Trump when we had put up Mitt Romney as the guy, right? I mean, you knew we were screwed, right? We had McCain before that. We were going so far to the center, and the center doesn't win, right? George W. Bush was kind of in the center, but had a lot of conservative opinions, at least on faith and other things like that, on pro-life, and he was able to hold on to those things. But the further you go away from the conservative base of the Republican Party, that's when you start to really lose the people, and that's where we were. McCain, Romney, come on. These guys are like Obama light, not so much McCain. So ultimately, my point is Trump brings the party back to life, and without Trump, we don't have a robust Republican Party like we have today. Anyway, that's my thought. I'm coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I want to put an APB out on a couple of people. My buddy Matt, Morehead City, North Carolina, WTKF. I have not heard from him. 80 miles north, right? Haven't heard from him in a bit. Kim in Shields, Michigan. I haven't heard from her either. Hope you guys are okay and the deep state is not preventing you from getting through. It's always good to hear check-ins from you guys. But I want to continue. I want to go to Vincennes, Indiana, WAOV, and check in with Virginia. Go right ahead.
Hi. I have never called anybody.
Never?
On a news
well, I'm
station.
honored.
No, never.
What made you call today?
I just always put it off. No, I just can't figure out why anybody would want to vote for Kamala Harris.
You know what it is?
I've never figured it out.
I believe that people, the more media they consume that is not balanced in any way, like I would say if you watch a little bit of some conservative-leaning commentary or talk radio, you're getting a different perspective than you get from MSNBC, CNN, and you can make up your mind because you're hearing two different stories. But if all you've got, because of work or because of life or because of whatever, is the news that pops up on your phone from your Apple phone or your other kind of phone or, you know, your AOL account on the internet, and that's all you get, or CNN, you're, for lack of a better word, you're screwed. Right? You're only going to hear one side of the story. It says that she's fantastic and Donald Trump is this, that, and all these other bad things. And how could you not? Because he's a threat to democracy, Virginia. And that's how they do it. They bamboozle people all day long by just not telling the truth.
Well, we know what he done 4 years that he was in there. He was the best president we had since Reagan.
I'm with you 100%. You're 100% right. And that's what I believe this campaign comes down to is if you're alive and you have a pulse and you have eyeballs, and even if you don't, right? I don't, no offense to anybody who may not be sighted, but if you were alive and were able to understand what was happening in those years he was president and compare and contrast them to what's happening now, just like you, Virginia, I think it's a slam dunk decision. There's no way anybody wants a repeat of what just happened. Opening of the borders, inflation going up to 14 and whatever 30 and blah, blah, blah. And all the other problems we've had with the global conflicts. Nobody wants that. I think things were safer with Trump. Things were cheaper with Trump. Annual household incomes were higher with Trump. Taxes were lower with Trump. I mean, you name it. The gas prices were lower. It was a better situation all around with peace in the Middle East, literally the Abraham Accords. So I think you're right. I don't know how people could vote for Democrats either, but I'm hoping they listen to this program and they call just like you did. I love hearing your voice, Virginia. Thank you for the call. Virginia in Vincennes, Indiana, WAOV. Great station, great call. Thank you. And let us continue. We do one more and then we go for the speed round. Let me see. Where do I go? Hold on. Don't go anywhere just yet. Here we go. JW, Dothan, Alabama. Go right ahead. WDBT. J-Dub, sounds like the deep state got you. Let's put him on hold, see if we can get him back when we come back. Folks, we're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we continue with your calls. Let's go to Jason, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, I just got a quick comment. You know, everybody talks so much about the South and the Carolinas. I mean, you know, we're all Jim Crow, this, that, and the other, and everybody's just flooding here. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, they're flooding.
Of course. Listen, who's got better weather? Let me tell you, I love Florida. I think Florida's great, and at least, 4 or 5 times a week, I tell somebody, I'm just looking for the right price on the right place in Brickell in Miami, and I'm out of here. And they always go, too hot for me, too humid South Florida. I like the Carolinas. Oh, I love the Carolinas. Listen, you guys have the best weather, and your neighbors to the north, you guys have some amazing barbecue, that vinegar-based barbecue. People love that stuff, Jason.
Well, it's not just the weather. I just think it's the politics. They're escaping from the taxes. They're running like crazy. I'm not just talking about New England. I'm talking about California, Oregon. They're just running. It's
100% right. Listen, if you live in one of the coastal places like California or New York, people are overtaxed. It costs a fortune to live in these areas. Fortune in taxes. It's brutal. And you literally give yourself a raise by moving somewhere else. And why not go somewhere with perfect weather and, less taxes and a better structure? So, yeah, that's the disadvantage of living in a nice red place is that it's eventually going to become blue because the blue people don't like the blue states they live in. Jason, good point. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Thank you for your call, my friend. Let's go to Claude, Rosanna, Ohio, WNIR, very quickly.
Hey, Rich, I'm 70 years old. I've worked over 25 years. I had a stroke. I've had 3 since, and I need assistance. I've never had to ask for it before in any way, shape, or form. But now it's hurry up and wait line, and you just, you're overqualified. Yeah.
You're saying looking for work?
No, as far as my Social Security.
Oh, like
check.
Dealing with the government and whatnot. Yeah, listen, this is a great point you bring up, Claude, and I'm sorry you're going through that. But this is one of those things. You've got the Harris-Biden administration that claims to be for the people, and they want to have all these services. Yet we're getting calls like this one from you where they're not doing enough to help people, and people that are actually in need, somebody like a stroke survivor like yourself. Sorry to hear it, Claude. I wish you the best. Godspeed to you. Claude in Rosanna, Ohio, WNIR. The music means I've got to go. Shout out to Steve, Brody, Frank, and Paul. KOFI, KBOI, KDKA, KBFI, WTMA, and all the rest of the great stations. Good night. God bless. Hasta la próxima. Rich Valdez.